Well, good afternoon. How is everybody? I hope you've enjoyed your refreshments and an opportunity to network. Again, I'm Nelle Hotchkiss with North Carolina's Electric Cooperatives. I'm going to let each of the panelists just reintroduce themselves just for a second and who they're representing. Unfortunately, we've had two panelists that are not able to be with us today. Nate Denny from the state, but I talked to him and have a few comments for him to make. And Greg Coltrane from River Street, but Donna, I think, can handle from the communications and broadband utility side. We got TMCs is what I know, but y'all are changing so rapidly with your business model, so and what you all do. So we gotta call that out and name it what it is. And we will negotiate that out. But one of the key elements we really wanted for today is some good discussion. We've already had some quick conversation about broadband prior when we got started. I think it goes without saying that the value of what broadband can bring to communities, business, schools, healthcare, lots of different things is imperative. And I do believe COVID highlighted that and the response to the lockdown. So I think that goes without saying. Now we got to figure out how we can collaboratively work together, not only to get it done, but to perhaps accelerate the process and advocate to make sure appropriate resources are there as we need them, and make sure that it's inclusive in how we do it. So that's part of what we want to discuss today, and we're really happy to be with you and have the experts that can share their experiences on the panel. Donna?
Good afternoon again. I am Donna Bullard, representing Star Communications. I am the VP of Corporate Operations. And as I said, our headquarters is located in Clinton, North Carolina, and that is in Sampson County. And I'm just glad to be here today. I hate to reiterate, what I said earlier in our introduction, but truly we were proud of our DSL network. And then, of course, before the pandemic, we were working towards progress in becoming fully 100% fiber deployed in territory. And we do have a CLEC operation, Star Vision. Our ILEC is the TMC that we are very proud of for over 60 years. And I look forward to talking with you more about broadband.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maggie Woods. I'm a policy and program manager at the Institute for Emerging Issues. We're based out of NC State University, and I run all of our digital inclusion programs. So I'm really excited to be here on this esteemed panel and to learn from my fellow panelists. I sometimes feel like I'm the newbie in the room because I just got started in the broadband field about 2.5 to 3 years ago, but it is a young field when we start talking about digital inclusion. So if you're in the room and you're like, what is broadband? Broadband is high-speed internet. So if you have those questions, I feel you. I was there not that long ago. So I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Debbie Hamrick, the Director of Specialty Crops for the North Carolina Farm Bureau Federation, which just means that I cover everything fun in agriculture. And we consider broadband to be a fun topic. I'll be at times speaking with it and trying to get it to be deployed uniformly across the state. And I just forgot to mention when I introduced myself, earlier, that when it comes to healthcare, UNC's definitely rocks. But my blood bleeds really red. And I think everybody in here has red blood. Just say it.
All right, Debbie. Well, we thought we would begin the conversation with a level set of kind of where we are right now with broadband in the state for deployment for rural areas, unserved or underserved, and kind of what that means. And then we'll go into what folks are doing about it. And like I said, we have others represented here. Happy, TMCs have just kind of blown into this space with everything they got and are doing some really great things. And I want to highlight that. I talk about y'all all the time. Our electric cooperatives, we've got 2 that are working in this space pretty diligently and a 3rd that has tried to do some things. But to be honest, you all are retail. This is in your your wheelhouse. We can be partners, we can do middle mile, we can do pieces and parts of this. But to me, y'all have stepped up the plate in a huge way. And I want to make sure anybody who's in this room understands that. The cooperatives in many cases are leading the charge in deployment in rural areas. I want that statement there, and it's true. There may be some others that have some window dressing, aren't, have some big plans, aren't really doing it yet. And if they're successful, great. But I try to make sure folks know who's actually out there and doing the work. So with that said, Donna, do you want to kind of give us a little bit of a level set of what you all are doing at STAR, but also just generally kind of what you're seeing across the state? Thanks.
As Neil said, in the broadband world, the technology is unserved and underserved. And just to let you know, that threshold has changed. Just like I said, 20 years ago, we were super proud to say, hey, we've got 100% DSL network. However, on copper, pretty much the max speed you can get without a dual bonded modem, it's pretty much 10 meg. And it's like I said, with the pandemic coming, and you've got parents in the home, and you've got children in the home, and you've got all these devices. I walked in the hotel earlier with Bobby, and I looked and I forgot my watch. And Apple Watch is a device, and if it's connected to your Wi-Fi at home, you're drawing down on that bandwidth. So that copper speed was 10 meg, and with 20 or so devices now, with your smart thermostats, your alarm systems, and everything drawing down that bandwidth, 10 meg is simply not enough. So if you've got 10 meg, you're underserved. Underserved is anything less than 25 meg down, 3 meg up. If you, that is unserved. If you have anything less than 100 meg down and 20 meg up, you are underserved, meaning that pretty much 100 meg is the threshold. And of course, your charters, and spectrum, that's in the field. You see them advertising now. I think I just saw the other day. I believe it was Charter that has now bumped their entry level package to 200 meg. So here we are, Star Telephone out in the cooperative in rural America, to start out your copper 10 meg, that's just not quite enough. However, we are super proud to say, even before the pandemic, we were working to become 100% fiber to the home. However, that is a huge undertaking. I can only speak for STAR because STAR is what I know. But just as Nelle said, some of our sister co-ops in the room here, the Aiken Valley and Skyline and the Surrey, and even Randolph out of Liberty and Wilkes, who is now known as River Street, they have been great. We have all worked tirelessly over the past few years to fully deploy to serve you in rural America. And it's just been a huge undertaking. Star Telephone's footprint is 1,458 square miles. And just to put that in perspective for someone that was not a geographic buff here, I had to, going into Star, that is about the size of the state of Rhode Island. So when you look on a map and you see Rhode Island, that's Star's territory. To put it in perspective, someone that's just got a couple hundred miles, it's easy to say we're 100% deployed. But for STAR, you're talking millions in funding for that. And as a cooperative, you know that our principal and our foundation is nonprofit. So the capital credits and of course, the margins that are left over, we would work to put that in our CapEx. However, when you look at your footprint and you've got a $60 to $70 million project ahead of you, that's hard to fund. And you can do it, even with a CapEx budget of, say $5 million a year at $70 million, it still takes a while. And when the pandemic hit, it was like flipping a light switch. Bam, you needed it immediately. Now, 2021, there was funding called RDOF. And as far as the state of North Carolina, to answer Nelle's original introduction, RDOF has pretty well covered the state of North Carolina. SpaceX was a large winner in that auction, and Charter as well. And so, you know, North Carolina's doing fairly well. There's broadband mapping out there, or I have to think to myself what I just assume you know, just like your food co-ops. I'm learning a lot from that. The gentleman that spoke earlier, talking about the collaboration. It is so true. I've been in the telephone co-op industry now for 24 years. Never thought about the food co-ops, and of course electric co-ops. I definitely need that when I blow dry my hair every morning. So I'm very well aware of those. But it's something to think about. So funding is very important, and Nelle's going to talk more about the digital literacy. Affordability is a big key in this. And saying that, you know, that has been our goal in our project. However, the gentleman, I believe it was Mr. Howard here from Yadkin Valley, I had to chuckle a while ago at his comment, you need money. And that's exactly right. As VP of our corporate operations, that's my primary goal, along with our leader, Mr. Nethercutt here. How are we going to fund these projects? So financing and cash flow and funding is at the forefront of my mind all the time. We would love to have fiber to every single one of our ILEC territory subscribers. In the Sea Lake area, we're working on that as well. But we feel like, you know, as a TNC, our allegiance are to our members, and we need to have them fully fiber to the home definitely first. So we're working on that. And thankfully, standing here today as a poster child for your USDA RUS programs. Back in 2008, there were stimulus programs that, for one reason or another, started not to take part in, and that helped a lot of our co-ops, but started not participate in that funding. However, most recently with Reconnect Round 1, we were super excited. You know, I truly believe in go big or go home. The maximum grant award was $25 million, and we were awarded $23 million. Super excited. Yes, we were so happy. So that $25 million will cover half of our territory. With that being said, most recently, there have been now 3 rounds of this Reconnect funding. March 9th, we submitted our second application for another $25 million to complete our service territory. And now that doesn't account for what we had already put in the ground. We were roughly 30% before these grant applications. So we are excited. I fully believe and have all confidence, you know, I don't want to jinx ourselves, but there's no reason we should not be awarded the second our USDA third round, but our second application. You know, if you truly, what the government is saying, and even the state of North Carolina, they have programs as well. If you're wanting to get broadband to the homes, hey, we say we can do the job. We just need funding. We've been in business over 60 years and have a super team we work with. The gentleman that talked about the co-op mentality, it's true. I absolutely love where I work and the people that I work with, because we do have that helping mentality. It's not a cutthroat business for us. We enjoy helping that customer. So with that being said, there's more funding coming. There's a lot of funding coming. I had to chuckle at Susan earlier talking about the EMCs wanting to enter the broadband business. And I get it. There's enough business out there, believe me, for all of us. You know, there's the BEAD program. And to say where we are as far as the state of North Carolina, kudos to NCDIT. They have been very aggressive. They as well have what they call the GREAT program. We have been also recipients of that funding, and I've enjoyed working with that group. Angie Bailey and Kimberly and George Potter is now involved with that group. But I would say that the state of North Carolina is doing a great job. They are doing what they can to get funding out there to the folks like us, the TNCs. We know what we're doing. We know how to put that fiber, get it deployed, and turn it up that last mile. So we're excited. I think North Carolina's doing great. The last hard off auction, like I said, finish up the unserved areas for North Carolina. Between that and then those of us that have been awarded grants. So we're doing what we can. If we haven't come to you yet, we're coming. Just know we're working on it. Our goal, the reconnect that we won the first round, is a 5-year project. And the last one that we just applied for as well is a 5-year project. So we would be super excited if we are now a year in our first reconnect round. And last year alone, we deployed 118 miles of fiber. And that says a lot. And I'll talk about later some of the obstacles in our business is supply chain. We are really feeling it in our warehouse. It's kind of ironic. Years ago, we didn't have the funding. We had a warehouse full of fiber. Now we have funding coming from everywhere, and we don't have our warehouses empty. Plant manager does a super good job doing what he can to keep these projects going. So that's where STAR is in our 5 counties that we serve. We serve Bladen County, Sampson County, parts of Cumberland, Columbus, and Duplin County.
So, and I wish everybody was served by TMC, but they're not. So we're going to hope that you all can get your service areas done, and then maybe you can go outside of your service area where it makes sense to help other folks. Let's dig a little deeper on need. Debbie Hambrick, who's with Farm Bureau, has been a huge proponent for broadband deployment. She is a dog with a bone. She has been very clear. She has been a great advocate. And that has also shown up at the legislature. I give Farm Bureau and the Grange and others a lot of credit for continuing to keep the pressure on, so they knew we meant business and this needed to get done. So let's talk a little bit about that, and Debbie can share some of her perspectives, because agriculture is our #1 industry in the state. And they're handicapped right now in many cases for what they can do in the innovation that comes with what they can do in production agriculture, based on the fact that many of their areas do not have high-speed broadband that really works. So let's let Debbie share a little bit of her perspective with you.
Always a mistake to give a girl from Robinson County. Is anybody in here from ATMC Focused Broadband? I just want to give you a shout out. Earlier, I guess it was last year, 2021, I was at an event at the BT Men's Club, which is now the Barker 10 Mile Community Center. Daddy helped build the BT Men's Club, and y'all are bringing broadband to my rural community in Robinson County. I can't say thank you enough for what that means to bring it to the 10 Mile community in Robinson County. And for those of you that don't know about this fabulous place that I come from, it's on the north side of Lumberton, between Lumberton and St. Paul's, next to Saddle Tree. You know where Saddle Tree is. It's sort of like being from Cleveland's crossroads, Ron. And my road still isn't paved in Robinson County. Agriculture is the largest industry in the state of North Carolina. It's not the only industry in rural North Carolina, but it's sort of like for you to think about it as a proxy industry. It's not, everyone is not employed by agriculture in rural North Carolina, although if you look nationally, roughly 1/3 of everyone is employed in agriculture and food in our country. So roughly 1/3 of all workers are essential just because of that fact right there. A couple of years ago, we did a study with the Friday Institute. I'd just like to point out that the Friday Institute is at NC State University. And we worked with the North Carolina, you asked for it. We worked with the North Carolina Broadband Infrastructure Office and the Friday Institute to conduct a survey of our farmer members and farmers across the state of North Carolina. We got really good participation. And what we found a lot of stuff, but the most shocking thing that we found, the most distressing thing that we found, the thing that just woke me up at night thinking about it, literally. And again, agriculture is not the only industry in rural North Carolina, but if you listen to this next sentence and use it as a proxy for everybody else in rural North Carolina, we found that fully 1/3 of all farmers that we surveyed went to someone else's home so they could access internet. 1/3 could not access the internet at their place. They had to go to somebody else's house. We don't know. We didn't ask if it was a relative or a friend, but they had to go somewhere else to access internet. Now, I want to challenge you that if we're trying to preserve population in rural North Carolina, in places like the 10-mile community, where I left to go to college at NC State University, the best school in North Carolina, a long time ago and never went back, we need them to have a quality of life. We have to have a quality of life. It's not that they're going to sit at home streaming all day. Increasingly, farmers are finding that they have to diversify their sales in order to stay in business. Part of that diversification is selling direct to the public. If you're going to sell direct to the public, you need not only your cell phone, you can do some things here, but you really have to have high speed in order to set up and manage your website and in order to really do the heavy duty behind the scenes management of your online business. And if we want to make North Carolina's rural areas thrive, we need to empower not only the farmers that are in rural North Carolina, but every entrepreneur to have direct access to consumers across the country. And we do that through connecting them. Other things that are affecting agriculture. So I want to give you an idea of how important broadband is to agriculture. And I don't remember all these statistics off the top of my head. So if you think about a yield monitor on a tractor, one yield monitor on one tractor, and this is just yield. This isn't any other connectivity with farming, just the yield monitor. One can collect 7 gigabytes of data per acre. We have 4 million crop acres in the state of North Carolina. So if we're really going to be accessing data and using that data to maximize farming for our farmers and for our country, we need a lot of connectivity. Right now, if you're trying to use data for precision agriculture, often you have to go to the library or an extension office or sit in the parking lot at the McDonald's close enough to the router so that you can upload your data from your tractors into the cloud and download your prescriptions so that you know how to instruct your crews the next day. I have a son who's 28 years old or a daughter living in rural North Carolina. I do not want my child sitting in a McDonald's parking lot from 7 o'clock at night until 9:30 p.m. Doing that, I would rather have them on a date, finding somebody to want to stay in rural North Carolina with and build a high quality life. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I think that that's where we need to be looking at, right? Farmers are using the internet in a number of different ways. And it really depends on the action as to what kind of connectivity they have to have. And the companies that provide the technology to the farm know that they need to have small packet sizes and oftentimes that they need to be able to work on a cell phone because that's the only connectivity that they're going to have. Well, if you're only able to transmit data over a cell phone and you may only have 1 or 2 bars to work with and the packet sizes are that small, you're not maximizing technology in any capacity, but at least you're able to use it. So we're running our irrigation systems through connectivity. We're driving our seed planting decisions through technology and connectivity. We're driving the decisions on how much fertilizer we place on the fields through connectivity. When the field is in production and the crops are growing, our guys are flying drones over their crops, taking very high-res, very data-heavy pictures. And this is the part where they're spending hours in the McDonald's parking lot. And they're uploading those to the cloud. Those pictures are then going through models that are mapping back to the fertilizer distribution that the farmer put out, back to the soil mass that the farmer mapped, and telling the farmer, you got a problem on this part of the field. So when the farmer goes back out the next day to fix it with a prescription, and this is the 2 or 2.5 hours that they're sitting in the McDonald's parking lot for, he or she is only going to a part of the field to apply fungicide or pesticide or some other activity. That's the kind of efficiency in using input products that we need. But we can only get there with connectivity. Precision ag, according to USDA and a study that was done by the FCC, has improved fertilizer efficiency by 7% already. If we can get better connectivity and get more farmers using the technology, we can go another 14% with fertilizer efficiency. I don't think I need to remind everyone that some of our critical nutrients are coming from other continents right now when we're seeing these shortages, and we're in the middle of a very unsettled world situation. We can reduce pesticide spraying by up to 77%. That's going to happen with technology, but if I fly the drones, if I take the pictures, I've got to be able to upload them to the cloud and have them interpreted through these very data-heavy, intensive models. We know also that we're going to be more efficient with water if we can use the Internet of Things to drive watering decisions at the farm level. So my eyes around the state tell y'all, what did you call them? What is the acronym? The DMC, TMCs, but now the broadband MCs. Telecommunications. They are the heroes of broadband because I talk to members all the time that now have connectivity. I've met a couple of people that have also got Starlink. One person at the edge, literally of nowhere in Carteret County, and when I looked at her on the map, it just said, Miss June, you are miles away from anything that I could see on the bio maps. And she got Starlink, and she's a happy clam right now. So it's starting to happen very slowly, but I can tell you that agriculture is not there yet. And we need to be there because we're seeing young kids coming out of a certain school that has red as its background color and another certain school in Greensboro that has yellow and blue and gold as their background colors. And they want to use technology in order to maximize what they're doing on the farm, because that's how we know in the future we're going to be using our input products to the best of their ability and how they're going to maximize their profit.
All right, I told you she was passionate now. Now, Nate Denny couldn't be with us, but there are a couple of things that he wanted me to mention before we're going to make a pivot, and the pivot will also include urban areas. We have once-in-a-lifetime funding coming. We had the American Rescue Plan and some funding that came out of that. We have more USDA money coming and reconnect, and we got a farm bill coming up. So we're already advocating and talking to the committee members for the farm bill to make sure that we have enough and the rules enough so we can expedite some of this. The rules are also very important. So we have this opportunity, and we have the federal infrastructure bill, and that's going to be a block grant that comes to the state. And it's going to be important to talk to the legislators about where that goes and how that goes, because we want to make sure that folks that are actually getting the work done right now have access to these funds to accelerate that work. Now, Donna brought up something real important. We've got some supply chain issues. We also have staffing issues. You can only hire so many folks, and there are only so many folks that want to do some of this work. So some of that stuff is going to have to get itself worked out, and we know that. But at the same time, we can't lift our foot off the pedal in Raleigh or in Washington to make sure that they understand the folks that are actually getting it done, that are working hard to get it done, that are partnering to get it done, and we want to continue to do that. With that being said, there's also other programs that are out there that Maggie can speak to, which is the inclusion part of this conversation. And with that, there are devices and skills and abilities that need to be, and affordability that needs to be communicated into areas, and this could be rural or urban, where there are underserved or underutilized folks that may have access to broadband or will soon. And there's been a lot of conversation, and the Institute of Emerging Issues has really been a spearhead leader in this conversation. But what we want to make sure of is that just like we did with electricity a gazillion years ago, we had the old REA circuits. I bet you Mr. Howard remembers that. And we had to teach people how to use electricity. We had to teach people how to iron. We had to teach people how to use washing machines. And they were new appliances. Well, it's not all that dissimilar, because we need to make sure the adoption rate, the number of people taking the service, is enough to keep these folks doing what we need them to keep doing and deploying the broadband and keeping that service in a good place. And so that's another part of the equation. So let Maggie take over here and talk a little bit about what they're doing. And then we can have that inclusionary part of the conversation, which includes devices. And the more people that take it, the more affordable we can make it. And that's the other part of the conversation.
Thanks, Nelle. That was a great introduction. So let me take a step back and define what we mean by digital inclusion. So digital inclusion means access to affordable high-speed internet. If I was doing this in a PowerPoint, I would bold access and affordability, because if you cannot afford it, you do not have access to it. The second key component of digital inclusion is access to a device that meets your needs. Typically, we mean a computer, laptop, or tablet. We typically do not mean a smartphone. And Debbie, I usually have my smartphone out here to point that how many new people during the beginning of the pandemic who had to work from their smartphone or had to do their homework with a smartphone? Kids with homework. It's really hard to do your homework on a smartphone. It's really hard to do your work on a smartphone. Smartphones also have data plans. So if you go over that data plan and you're using your smartphone for your internet access, you're going to pay up a lot too, right? So we want a device that is internet enabled, that meets the needs of the user, typically a computer, laptop, or tablet. And finally, Nelle, as you were introducing, you need the digital skills, you need the digital literacy in order to use that device or to use the internet. And digital literacy is really interesting because it is a spectrum. Often when we talk about digital literacy, we mean really basic digital literacy. Can you turn on a computer? Can you access your email? Can you look something up on Google, right? But digital literacy is, can you code? Can you create that website that you were talking about? Can you use what you need for agriculture? So we're all somewhere on the digitally literate spectrum. I consider myself a very digitally literate person, but I don't know how to code. So those are the three kind of main elements of digital inclusion. So what are we doing about this, right? We talked to a lot of people, really smart, talented people who are working on the infrastructure side of the digital divide, who are working to get the cables in the ground, the fiber in the ground, so that people have access to high-speed internet. But we know it's not just access that's going to drive economic growth, it's the adoption. Are people actually going to use it when it's built? The answer is no, if we don't focus on these other parts of digital inclusion. So what we're doing at the Institute for Emerging Issues is that we work with counties, county leaders, nonprofits, churches, regional councils of government to develop digital inclusion plans. So these are county level plans to close the digital divide, to hit those three aspects of digital inclusion, so that when the infrastructure comes, you can ensure people will use it, and there will be that uptake rate so that people can afford to pay for it. So we started this program in June 2020, so just as the pandemic hit. And at that time, only one county in North Carolina had a digital inclusion plan. That was an urban area, that was Charlotte-Mecklenburg. They've been the leaders in this field for a really long time. Over the course of almost 2 years now, we now have 15 other digital inclusion plans as a result of our Band NC program. So Band NC has a goal to ensure that all North Carolina counties has a digital inclusion plan. So we have funded the planning process and provided technical assistance to 15 counties. There's another, my notes are right here, 28 counties that are getting launched or in process to develop digital inclusion plans. We have funding for another 13 counties. So by this time next year, over half of North Carolina counties should have a digital inclusion plan in place. And through this process, we've also developed a first-of-a-kind workshop series on how to develop a digital inclusion plan. So these have been virtual workshops so far because of the pandemic, but we are bringing county leaders from across the state together to talk about what is digital inclusion, what does the state level data say about it, how do you access local level data, how do you bring together a coalition of people in your community to tackle this issue. And secret, we need co-ops at the table. And many co-ops have been at the table, particularly those who are working in the broadband field, but all of you have a stake in the digital divide. We need all of you there. And so we've been developing these workshop series. We've run 2 of them over the course of 2 years in order to reach that goal of 100 counties with a digital inclusion plan in place. So we need all of you.
Right, they've been doing great work. The electric cooperatives of North Carolina were happy to help fund the initial activity to get us started. I believe Belt Foundation has been very generous and others. So they've been able to kind of get this going. But it's the other part of the issue is to make sure that whether they're urban or rural, that folks have the ability, especially in underserved communities, to understand how to access and how to benefit, which will help us with the tech environment. We all know where the workforce is going. We know where if people want to continue to participate or be entrepreneurial, that this is an important conversation to have. And so we appreciate Maggie and the work that the Emerging Issues Institute has been working on this. Nate also wanted me to make sure that you all were aware that there is the digital affordability program. Part of that was funded out of the federal government. State has access to those funds. Emily has been sent the links to that, and we'll make that available to folks. That is going to continue to be something that we're going to have to work through, is to ensure that people can afford it and that they'll be able to benefit. So that is still going to be part of that conversation. And yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about that, thanks, Mike.
I just think this is such an important program. So one, thank you, Nelle, because the North Carolina Electric Member Cooperatives were one of the first funders, as were Roanoke Electric. So we've been working with cooperatives from the start, but affordability is the main barrier to people being able to use the internet. And the federal government, through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, developed something called the ACP, or the Affordable Connectivity Program, which basically allows people to have a $30 subsidy, so $30 less per month for their internet. There's also a subsidy to receive a low-cost device. And so this is something that internet service providers will opt into, but if they receive any federal funds, they do have to participate in the program. This is a program that we expect to last into the future. And so it's a major win for making broadband affordable in North Carolina and across the country.
So many of us as businesses are digitizing our processes. You all in the financial services industry, that's certainly the big part of the work that's being done to be able to manage your dollars. You know, people are now ordering food online, and those are, you know, in Walmart and those folks that are in more rural areas all have apps now, and that's how people connect and have access to things. So the more we have in the literacy side for people to take part in the economy, the better off we're going to be. And we won't have haves and have-nots, we hope, if we do this well. So that's part of that conversation as well. I want to take a minute to, because I'm cognizant of the time, to open this up and how can we be part of this conversation and what can we do, as well as we've got other subject matter experts here. I'm looking at them. And they may have something or comments that they want to add, and I certainly want you all to hear from them. So let me throw this out. Who, you guys know who you are. Would anybody like to add anything that we missed in the conversation thus far before we talk about what we can all do? Ed or, yeah, go ahead. And I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to meet you yet. It's good to meet you.
So again, I'm Ken Mills, CEO of Xeris, used to be Yadtel. I think the only other thing, Debbie, I feel I'm kind of where Nate is. I'm 100% confident we have enough funds to get this out everywhere. It's going to take probably 5-6 years. A lot of these grants have timetables on them. I think you're going to see some exceptions made because of the shortage of products and equipment, et cetera. But I feel very confident stating that we'll have it everywhere throughout the state in the next probably 6-7 years. We're about 82% fiber penetration in all of our areas. So we've got, but again, that last part is the most difficult. Put it in perspective. You know, it's, to be honest with you, it's minimum $30,000 a mile run and stuff. That's being very conservative. You do just do math. We sell our 100 over 100, $39. You know, if you have 4 people a mile, you're talking about about 160 months of payback. You know, that's the kind of payback you're talking about. So I think that's one comment I would say. The other one, Maggie, that we're running into, because again, we've gone into Forsyth County. We basically said we're tired of AT&T and Spectrum coming in. We're going after them, and we're taking market share. I'll just be very candid with it. We're using that money to help fund rolling it out in the rural areas, kind of a little bit like Robin did. So we offer 1, 2, 3, and 6 gig. And then in our trade area, we offer 100 over 100 because those people have been loyal to us. But one of the things that we still we're struggling with is the equipment that people have in their homes cannot handle some of these speeds. So I think that's something we all need to work on, whether it's routers. Now on our 1, 2, 3, and 6 gig, the routers included, Wi-Fi's included. But that's where we see a lot of disconnects. People have older laptops or equipment that's been passed down, and it's just a struggle to handle some speed.